Hey viewers, what happens if oxygen supply stops for 5 minutes? Have you ever wondered why and what is going to happen? See, every second we breathe without thinking, but have you ever wondered how oxygen enters our body and help us stay alive? Today let us understand the structure and function of respiratory system in details. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back to my channel AR Paradin. See, so respiratory system. The respiratory organs are the parts of the body that help in breathing and exchange of gases. They take in oxygen and remove carbon dioxide. So basically, if we go through the definition, see, all living organisms require a continuous supply of oxygen for cellular respiration and exchange of gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide, between an organism and its environment is called as what? Respiration or breathing. See, so if we go through the respiratory system, so it is consist of respiratory system consist of first part nostril and nasal cavity. These are the beginning of the respiratory system separated by nasal septum and internally lined by pseudostratified mucus secreted ciliated epithelium. The smaller dust particles and bacteria are trapped by the cilia and mucus. Next is pharynx. It is a common passage for both food and air. The passage for food is called oropharynx and that of air is called nasopharynx. The nasopharynx open at back into larynx. See, coming to the next part, we have larynx. It is also known as sound box or voice box, located in the neck region. The front part of the larynx forms Adam's apple in males. The epiglottis, elastic cartilage, closes the glottis when the food is swallowed. Next part is trachea. This is also known as windpipe. Internally lined by pseudostratified mucus secreting ciliated epithelium that traps dust particles present in the inhaling air. Trachea extends up to the mid-thoracic cavity, which divides at the level of fifth thoracic vertebra into a right and left primary bronchia. Coming to the lungs, these are located within the thoracic cavity, which is anatomically an airtight chamber protected by the ribcage. The thoracic chamber is formed dorsally by the vertebral column, ventrally by the sternum, laterally by the ribs, and the lower side by a dome-shaped diaphragm. The lungs are covered by double-layered membranes called pleural membranes with pleural fluid between them. It reduces the friction on the lungs surface. The inner membrane is called visceral pleura and the outer membrane is called parietal pleura. Okay, coming to the next part, we have bronchial tree. Internally, the lungs contain tree-like structure consisting of tubes, sacs, and blood capillaries. The trachea divides into left and right primary bronchia that enters to left and right lungs, further divides into secondary bronchia, and they branch into tertiary bronchia. These further divide into very thin terminal bronchioles and then into respiratory bronchioles. The trachea, primary, secondary, and tertiary bronchia and initial bronchioles are supported by incomplete cartilaginous rings. Each terminal bronchiole gives rise to a number of very thin irregular walled. The next part is, we can say, unit of the respiratory system, that is nothing but the alveoli. These are the tiny air sacs inside the lung. It's surrounded by blood capillaries. It is the site for exchange of gases. It enters blood, carbon dioxide leaves the blood. See, when oxygen is going to enter, carbon dioxide is going to leave the blood from the alveoli. Next, coming to the next part of this our lesson, different types of respiratory organs. See, all living organisms have different respiratory organs based on their habitat, body structure, and oxygen demand. See, organ means respiratory organ means the organs which is performing the respiration process. That is known as what? Respiratory organs. First one is respiration through body surface. That is nothing but the by process of diffusion. And we have examples like amoeba, paramecium. These we can see the features. The entire body act as respiratory organ in this. Oxygen diffuses directly into cells. Carbon dioxide diffuses outside. It occurs due to thin body and moist surface. It happens mainly in unicellular organisms. Means the respiration through body surface is mainly happening in unicellular organism. Coming to the second organ, we can say this is the method of cutaneous respiration or dermal respiration. Example for this type of respirations are frog and the earthworm. Here the skin is going to act as respiratory organ. Skin is thin, moist and richly supplied with blood capillaries. Oxygen diffuses into blood through skin. Here the frogs are using the skin in water. Whenever they are present in water, they are going to use their skin. But whenever they are on land, they are going to use lungs as their respiratory organs. Okay, coming to the next type or method, tracheal respiration. Here the examples are most of the insects, uh, example mainly cockroach. See, respiration through tracheal system in this method. Next, air enters through openings called spiracles. Next, trachea directly supply oxygen to the tissues and blood does not transport oxygen. It is very efficient for small terrestrial animals like insects. Next, we have bronchial respiration or respiration by gills. Examples are fish, tadpoles, etc. Here, the gills are thin, feathery in structure. They are richly supplied with blood capillaries. Next, oxygen dissolved in water diffuses into blood. Carbon dioxide diffuses out. It is used by mainly aquatic animals. Coming to the pulmonary respiration or respiration by lungs. Examples are humans, birds, reptiles, etc. See, here these specific features are lungs are mainly respiratory organs. Exchange of gases occurs in alveoli. Oxygen enters blood and carbon dioxide is removed. Most efficient respiratory system we can say. It is common in all or most of the terrestrial vertebrates. Okay, our next part is mechanism of breathing. See, as we know, all living organisms require a continuous supply of oxygen for cellular respiration and exchange of gases, like inhalation of oxygen and exhalation of carbon dioxide between organism and its environment. This is basically known as breathing or respiration. So it has two steps or two processes. First one is inspiration or inhalation. In this process, diaphragm contracts and move downward. Intercostal muscles contract and lift up the rib cage. The thoracic cavity expands, volume increases, and air enters the lung, which we can say it is a oxygen rich. Next, coming to the expiration or exhalation. In this process, diaphragm is relaxed and moves upward. Intercostal muscles relax and the rib cage moves downward. The thoracic cavity reduces volume and the volume of air is what decreases. Air is pushed out of the lung, mainly we can say carbon dioxide rich air. It is going to expel out during expiration process. So these two methods is known as what? Mechanism of breathing. After mechanism, we have some of the respiratory volumes and capacities. See, first, mainly, this respiratory volume is defined as the amount of air taken in and given out can be measured and expressed in respiratory volumes by using spirometer. Now we have some of the volumes and capacities which is used in the respiratory process. First, the respiratory volume, the amount of air taken in and given out can be measured and expressed in respiratory volumes by using spirometer. See, first one is tidal volume. It is also denoted by TB. Volume of air which is inspired or expired during a normal respiration. It is approximately 500 ml. A healthy man or woman can inspire or expire approximately 6,000 to 8,000 ml of air per minute. So, this is known as tidal volume. Coming to the next, inspiratory reserve volume. Additional volume of air a person can inspire by a forcible inspiration. This average is 2500 ml to 3000 ml. Next, expiratory reserve volume. An additional amount of air a person can expire by a forceful expiration. This average could be 1000 ml to 1100 ml. Next, coming to the next, residual volume. Volume of air remaining in the lungs even after a forcible expiration. This average is about 1100 ml to 1200 ml. By adding up a few respiratory volumes described above, one can derive various pulmonary capacities which can be used in clinical diagnosis. Next, inspiratory capacity. Total volume of air a person can inspire after a normal expiration. This includes tidal volume plus inspiratory reserve volume. Coming to the next, expiratory capacity. Total volume of air a person expire after a normal inspiration. This includes tidal volume plus expiratory reserve volume. Coming to the next, functional residual capacity. Volume of air that will remain in the lungs after a normal expiration. This includes ERV plus RV. Next, vital capacity. The maximum volume of air a person can breathe in after a forced expiration. This includes ERV, TV, and IRV, or the maximum volume of air a person can breathe out after a forced expiration. Next, total lung capacity. Total volume of air accommodated in the lungs at the end of forced inspiration. This include RV, ARV, TV, and IRV, or vital capacity plus residual volume. Transport of gases. See, next, the blood is the medium of transport of oxygen as well as carbon dioxide. About 97% of oxygen is transported by RBCs in the blood. The remaining 3% of oxygen is carried in a dissolved state through the plasma. Nearly 20 to 25% of carbon dioxide is transported by RBCs, whereas 70% of it is carried by, as bicarbonates. About 7% of carbon dioxide is carried in a dissolved state through plasma. See, first we'll go through the transport of oxygen. Hemoglobin is a red colored iron containing pigment present in the RBCs. Oxygen can bind with hemoglobin in a reversible manner to form oxyhemoglobin. Each hemoglobin molecule can carry a maximum of 4 molecules of oxygen. Binding of oxygen with hemoglobin is primarily related to the partial pressure of oxygen. Partial pressure of carbon dioxide, hydrogen ion concentration, and temperature are the other factors which can interfere with this binding. A sigmoid curve is obtained when percentage saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen is plotted against the partial pressure of oxygen. This curve is called oxygen dissociation curve and is highly useful in the studying of the effect of factors like partial pressure of carbon dioxide, hydrogen concentration, etc. on binding of oxygen with hemoglobin. In alveoli, where there is high partial pressure of oxygen, low partial pressure of carbon dioxide, lesser H plus concentration, and lower temperature, the factors are all favorable for the formation of oxyhemoglobin. Whereas in the tissues where low partial pressure of oxygen, high partial pressure of carbon dioxide, high H plus concentration and higher temperature exist, the conditions are favorable for dissociation of oxygen from the oxyhemoglobin. This clearly indicates that oxygen gets bound to hemoglobin in the lung surface and gets dissociated at the tissues. Every 100 ml of oxygenated blood can deliver around 5 ml of oxygen to the tissues under normal physiological conditions. Next, coming to transport of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is carried out by hemoglobin as carbaminohemoglobin, about 20 to 25% in this way. This binding is related to the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Partial pressure of oxygen is a major factor which could affect this binding. When partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high and partial pressure of oxygen is low, as in the tissues, more binding of carbon dioxide occurs. Whereas when the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is low and partial pressure of oxygen is high, as in the alveoli, dissociation of carbon dioxide from carbaminohemoglobin takes place. That is, carbon dioxide which is bound to hemoglobin from the tissues is delivered at the alveoli. RBCs contain a very high concentration of the enzyme carbanic anhydrase and minute quantities of the same is present in the plasma too. This enzyme facilitates the following reaction in both direction. Carbon dioxide plus water in presence of carbonic anhydrase gives H2CO3. In presence of carbonic anhydrase, HCO minus plus H plus is going to form. At the tissue site, where partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high due to catabolism, carbon dioxide diffuses into blood, RBCs and plasma and forms HCO3 minus and H plus. At the alveolar site, where PCO2 is low, the reaction proceeds in the opposite direction, leading to the formation of carbon dioxide and H2O. Thus, carbon dioxide trapped as bicarbonates at the tissue level and transported to the alveoli is released out as carbon dioxide. Every 100 ml of deoxygenated blood delivers approximately 4 ml of carbon dioxide to the alveoli. Coming to the regulation of respiration, human beings have significant ability to maintain and moderate the respiratory rhythm to suit the demands of the body tissues. This is done by the neural system, a specialized center present in the medulla region of the brain called respiratory rhythm center. It is primarily responsible for this regulation. Another center is also present in the ponus region of the brain called pneumotaxic center and can moderate the functions of the respiratory rhythm center. Neural signal from this center can reduce the duration of inspiration and thereby alter the respiratory rate. A chemosensitive area is situated adjacent to the rhythm center, which is highly sensitive to carbon dioxide and hydrogen ions. Increase in this substance can activate this center, which in turn can signal the rhythm center to make necessary adjustments. In the respiratory process by which these substances can be eliminated, receptors associated with aortic arc and carotid artery also can recognize changes in carbon dioxide and H plus concentration and send necessary signals to the rhythm center for remedial actions. The role of oxygen in the regulation of respiratory rhythm is quite insignificant. Coming to the last part of our lesson, disorders of respiratory system. First respiratory disorder is asthma. It is a difficulty in breathing causing wheezing sound due to inflammation of bronchi and bronchioles. So, this is the disorder, respiratory disorder, and having wheezing sound in this. Emphysema. Second is emphysema is a chronic disorder in which alveolar walls are damaged, due to which respiratory surface is decreased. One of the major causes of this is cigarette smoking. Next respiratory disorder is occupational respiratory disorders. In certain industries, especially those involving grinding or stone breaking, so much dust is produced that the defense mechanism of body cannot fully cope with the situation. Long exposure can give rise to inflammation, leading to fibrosis, proliferation of the fibrous tissues, and thus causing serious lung damage. Workers in these industries should wear protective masks. So, I hope you all are enjoying my videos and understanding my videos. So, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Allah Hafiz. Dua mein yaad rakhna.